Thank you, Madam Speaker. And can I just say, I'm actually very grateful that we survived Cyclone Fina. And I know a lot of residents were worried about, fallen trees, fallen power lines, etc., and loss of power. And they had to adapt their lives. They had to adapt their lives, Madam Speaker, because their priority was to keep their family and friends safe, as it should be. But let me say, I thank God we did not have a loss of life. Unlike those who had to deal with Cyclone Tracy just over 50 years ago. So when I reflect on that, I'm really grateful. And so I do take a little opportunity of saying a little prayer to say thank you for that. I think it was a blessing for all Territorians. And I think we need to put things in perspective sometimes. Madam Speaker, what was one of the core characteristics that came out of this whole exercise? We didn't want it, but it happened. And may I say, sometimes shit does happen and you have to deal with it. But I'll tell you what it did bring out. It highlighted to me resilience. The resilience of Territorians to deal with these hardships and to get on and recover. That to me is inspiring. And I think the role of government here is to tap into that resilience, help Territorians to do what they know on the ground they can do best. And I think we've seen a number of examples of that. I think even at a very personal level, in my own electorate, I saw neighbours coming together to help each other. There were trees across the roads. You couldn't get out. And they were blocking the road access to get out to the main arterials. Neighbours came together. Those with chainsaws, those whatever, they came to cut those trees back. And guess what? A lot of those trees were council trees. And where did they go and put the leftover trees? On the verges. It's common sense. But I'll come back to that point later. But it's a really important point. It's about how neighbourhoods get together. They go and check on the welfare of their friends. They go and say, hey, there's a couple of elderly people here. We better make sure they're okay. That's what inspires me. And I think this happened across the whole of the Territory, not just in Darwin, but I know there was support from all across the Territory to help people here. When I went round Malak myself in Karama, I took a drive round there myself. I went up to my office. But I went past Malak shops, Holtzland Park. There would have been 5, 10 big trees down on that park itself. But there were 2 or 3 that were down lying across Malak Crescent. But this is where people came together. And I think we've really got to thank all our agencies, our volunteer groups, all the community groups that pitched in to come together. I also want to thank all of our agencies, but I particularly want to highlight our NT emergency services. I think they were out there from the start. Their communication with the community was wonderful. I certainly shared a lot of their communication on my work Facebook page so that local residents knew how to contact people if they'd had issues and so on. But you could see they were out there. They were out there working. And so I give full credit to all of them. But to all the other agencies, to our schools, we've just heard from the Minister for Education, how they kept going. They didn't stop early on because they wanted to keep going so our people like our emergency services didn't have to worry about their kids, knew their kids would still be going to school, but they would be out there on the ground. And this is what I heard the Chief Minister say. It's business as usual. You've got to keep going. You've got to keep going. And I think that's one of the learnings we got from this exercise. Really well done, and congratulations to all involved, Our police, our ambos, fantastic. They were out there. Some of those ambulances were still being called for code 1s during the cyclone. Code 1 is when you generally got people having a heart attack or something like that. Sure, they've got to triage it, but they were ready to go out and do that because they're out there to serve our community. And just on that note, I understand that there were 5 babies born during the cyclone. Well, 5 was the number I had latest I got. Now, that may have gone up. I don't keep track of every birth going on, may I say. But talk about resilience. Look at those young mothers. What a way, going through labour, delivering children. And may I say, can we also thank all the health professionals at RDH and so on who came behind and helped those deliveries, and all the other people who got involved in that. This is true resilience. Now, I don't know how many of those are going to be called Fina or Typhoon or whatever, but good luck to them. It'll be a memory. But those children were born into resilient families. They have a good start, and I think we should all be inspired by that. So for all those young mothers who went through there, I am in total admiration of you. You have done a wonderful job, and I congratulate you for trying circumstances, but you are doing the most important thing you can do because you're bringing new life to the world, and that's fantastic. So again, I'd also just like to thank all the volunteer groups, the agencies. I've mentioned the Northern Territory Emergency Services. Can I also mention some of the church groups, the local community groups who got involved? Even in my electorate, and I was posting regularly about the updates from NT Secure, so people could keep up to date with what was happening. I had a midwife, Lucy Rogers, who's also a nurse. She volunteered. She came to me and she said, "Brian, if you know anyone who needs some in-care help at their houses, let me know." She was happy to go out and visit them. Fantastic. That's what we see. Another local resident, Steve Allen, he came out and said, "Look, I've got a spare ute. If anyone needs some help, if they ring in your office, just let me know." It's connecting the community up. The community has a lot of internal resources. A job of all us as MLAs is to help bring that together. And that goes across the chamber for everyone involved. I think it's a really important role for MLAs to connect communities together. And so I also want to congratulate the Northern Territory Government and its leadership, the Chief Minister and everyone else involved and all the agencies. I think you did a tremendous job in getting on the front foot, keeping businesses alive, keeping everyone going, but also communicating, being really well out there communicating. And, you know, we saw businesses making their own choice. Some shopping centres would shut, some would decide to stay open. They made their own risk assessment, as they should. We saw a lot of other sporting groups decide to either, stop playing and so on. Local shops did the same thing. I know that Karama shopping centre shut down. Malak shops stayed open for part of the day on Friday. They shut on the Saturday, but they came back halfway through Sunday. So people want to know, could I still go and get milk somewhere? Could I go and get some bread? That was really good. The issue I do have, though, and I want to come back to this one, where I talked about cutting up trees and putting it on the verge. The Darwin City Council, I think their staff are doing a magnificent job. They're out there and they're going to play a great role in the recovery. The staff out there on the ground are fantastic. I think the leadership and the communication from the Darwin City Council was poor, and I think it needs to be called out and they need to look at it. Because during Cyclone Marcus, I believe they handled it much better than what they did in this one. Shutting the tip down when people want to get there and get their green waste away is just nonsensical as far as I'm concerned. Any council worth its salt would have said, right, we know there's a cyclone coming, we know a lot of people want to get their green waste away, we're going to open up free for 2 days beforehand, sure, shut down during the actual cyclone, but then open it up for free 2 days afterwards. I know you've got commercial businesses, but if you've ever gone to Shoal Bay, the queues coming back from there, because they give priority to the commercials and they're trying to weigh them in and all that, it goes back to Vanderlyn Drive. This happens every year. They need to put in a 2-lane access and open up in times of emergency so residents can just go through one gate, the commercials can go through another. They know this happens every year, but they are not fixing it and they need to. But to tell people you cannot dump your green waste on the verge when you're trying to clean up roads, where do they expect people to put it? In their own backyards? Answer's no. Let's have a bit of common sense. So for the leadership of the council, can I say, The community is not here to serve you. You are here to serve the community, and you need to put the community first. If you do an expense, seek recovery later on from the federal government or NT government. But thank you very much, and I congratulate everyone for surviving.